views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Get ready for a game changer. Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sarah will bring you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Now here's your host, Sarah Westall.
Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall, and you're listening to Conscious Business Radio on the Transformation Talk Radio Network. Today we're going to talk about how the United States can remain globally competitive. How do we remain competitive when we have so many issues? We have a ton of issues that we need to take care of. Other countries do too, obviously, but some of them, or a lot of them, are taking these issues a lot more seriously, and they're really trying to combat them, or they just don't have the same level of issues that we have. So how do we remain competitive in a global market when other countries don't have the same level of issues that we do, or they're much more serious about taking care of their issues? Is it possible for us to remain competitive in that kind of environment? And the other question, is it okay for our main industry to just be the military? We excel at that, but is our country going to be healthy long term, and are we going to thrive when our main industry is military? Okay, let's talk some numbers here. The U.S. national debt is over $19.5 trillion right now, and it's growing at an incredible rate. You can go see the debt clock at usdebtclock.org. It's pretty incredible. It is now larger than the U.S. gross domestic product, which sits at approximately $18.5 trillion. It cannot continue to increase at this rate without debt becoming unpayable and resulting in serious consequences. I don't know if it's payable now. I guess I can't get my head completely around how this whole thing can keep going. Now let's talk about corruption. Corruption is everywhere, not just the United States. We are not the sole owners of corruption. Other countries have it as well. But we have quite a bit of dishonesty, disloyalty, greedy citizens and leaders that have been allowed to flourish over the last few decades. And we've always had that, but not at the level that we've had recently. It's become an epidemic that's undermining the security and future of our nation. And there are countless examples and tragic consequences that have been documented really well over the past decade on this topic. It's something we need to get a handle on. With all those issues, we also have political gridlock. So how are we going to solve these problems when we have political gridlock at unprecedented levels? We've always had some political gridlock, right? But according to the Brookings Institute, political gridlock now is twice as prevalent as it was in 1950. It has become increasingly difficult for leaders to put meaningful legislation through Congress. And as you are all aware, the media is not helping, as it has become just as polarized as the politicians in Washington, which you can see when you watch all the major networks. You see one is really, really to the left and others are really to the right. It's really obvious. Without a focused action on a shared vision, it will be extremely difficult to solve serious issues. We really need to get together and work hard, just like in a business where you have a shared vision and you have goals, and everybody with all these different ideas and concepts in business, if you get a shared vision and you have the same goals, you at least march in the same direction. Even if you have different ideas and have different personalities and come from different backgrounds, you can get a group of people to march in the same direction if you all share the same vision and goals. We don't have that in this country, and it's something that needs to be fixed. And let's talk about global competition a bit. The United States, we still lead in higher education, medical innovation, nanotechnology, and in military defense. We also lead in AI, which is pretty cool. But other countries are catching up or bypassing the United States in many important areas. For example, China has overtaken the U.S. not only in GDP, but also in important industries such as manufacturing, supercomputing, and rare mineral mining and production, which could be a critical issue for us. France leads the world in healthcare for its citizens, Japan in robotics, and many other countries are excelling in different niche industries around the world. So with all these challenges that we're facing in our country, how are we going to remain competitive in an increasingly global competitive environment? That's our question today. And to answer that, we are bringing an expert, Mark Minovich, who is the senior advisor of the Council on Competitiveness in Washington, D.C. And that council is the who's who of leadership in our country. They bring the leaders of universities, the CEOs of all the major corporations together and talk about how we can be competitive in the global market. And we are lucky to have the senior advisor from that council come and talk to us about what they are doing and how they see this problem. They're aware of these issues and they're trying to figure out how we can march to the same drum, get Congress on the same page and become competitive. What's really neat about these people is they're patriots. They're not just international corporations looking to create every country can compete with us. They don't care. No, they are patriots who are trying to make the United States great and create jobs for U.S. citizens. So it's a really neat thing that they're doing. The other thing about him is he's the principal founder of Going Global Ventures, a New York-based global investment technology and strategic advisory firm. He has been looking at these issues for years and years. He's also the author of many highly acclaimed books, including 6 Billion Minds and the CTO Handbook, the Indispensable Technology Leadership Resource. He is the recipient of the prestigious Albert Einstein Award for Outstanding Achievement on Global Innovation and World Trade Leadership Award, which is pretty cool. So let's welcome Mark Minovich to the program. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, I am excited to talk to you because it's such an important topic that you focus on. And your focus, part of your focus, you have a pretty broad spectrum of things that you do, but part of it is on the Competitive Council for the United States. Can you tell us what that is?
Absolutely, Sarah. Actually, just came back from Washington, D.C. Yesterday, I had a whole day of meetings in Washington with my peers and colleagues. So the United States Council of Competitiveness is a nonpartisan leadership organization. Corporate CEO leaders, university presidents, labor leaders, and all the major national laboratory research directors in the United States fully committed to driving U.S. productivity, innovation, and growth. And most importantly, Sarah, increasing living standards for every American.
Which is really a pretty critical issue right now as far as us staying competitive globally and keeping our standards of living, because as we compete with other countries around the world, our standard of living is in jeopardy. So
it absolutely is. We have some issues which we will talk about in the conversation. At least I hope that we will. We got to do better with our productivity. Just by a little, we got to increase our productivity. We got to keep increasing our growth, and we have to make sure we're constantly on top of innovation. We are a leader on innovation, but we got to do better in that. But I am concerned about productivity. I am concerned that people are working harder every day. They're putting in longer hours, but we're not as productive. The productivity numbers don't reflect that.
We have to be smarter on how we have to use technology and be smarter on how we get to that higher productivity. Because it's not going to come by working harder, because Americans work harder than pretty much everybody in the world, right? So we have to do it through other means.
We are the hardest working people in the world during summer vacations, when everybody is vacationing in Europe and other places, we continue to work. And I'm also concerned that we are entering, and I don't want to dwell on this in the beginning of our conversation, but since we are having this conversation, we're we're beginning in America a focus on so-called gig economy, which means people are working on multiple jobs, very disconnected from a theme of continuity and continuing career progress and really providing the best that they can to impact the growth and productivity in the United States. So this gig economy has advantages where we're mobile, we're nomadic, but it isn't helping us, as you mentioned, with the goals of growth and productivity, and we have to find a balance in this new world.
Well, I think people and companies are looking for people who have the skill sets right now to do a task that they have on hand or a project they have on hand. And it used to be you look for a type of candidate with the right ideals and things that align with your company, and then they grow into the roles that you need. And we've gotten away from that. And I think that's what you're saying, right? Is that we need to develop people and develop you don't look, if you look at just gigs, then you're not going towards growth of individuals in the long term.
What exactly, Sarah? Exactly. You said it so perfectly well. What we're doing right now is we're freelancing our economy, which means we're working on many, many things, and we're not deep diving. We're not really doing them. We're not doing them with full intensity and full capacity that we have as Americans, because when we focus on something, we get it right. And we've shown that over many, many years in our history in the United States. But we're doing pieces here, pieces there. It doesn't seem to be a very focused attempt. And the gig economy reflects that. Well,
what is the Global Federation of Competitive Councils? Why are we working with a global group?
Yeah, so United States Competitiveness Council several years ago became a major supporter of creating innovation and competitiveness and fostering competitiveness around the world, because we got to work together. And with different countries around the world, we're not an island. And so the Global Federation of Competitiveness Council was born with a thought of collaboration. And it's not only the U.S. Competitiveness Council, which is part of it. There are many, many other leaders from different countries in the Middle East, Brazil, and others. And it's basically a network of leaders and organizations that are also focusing on competitiveness from around the world, that are committed to the implementation of the competitiveness strategies to drive innovation, productivity, prosperity for nations and regions and cities. And JFCC has a very major role to play. It develops and implements ideas, concepts, and initiatives and tools to understand and navigate lots of complexity in the global competitive landscape. And there's lots of interesting programs from universities to research to smart cities to different programs and events around the world. In fact, there is a program which will happen in London, which will bring together all the major leaders from around the world in competitiveness and innovation to London at the end of November, where people will focus on prosperity. They'll focus on how countries will engage globally through bilateral and multilateral partnerships to catalyze competitiveness and innovation. So I hope I answered what JFCC is. It's an umbrella. It's an umbrella of countries and associations within those countries that are fostering the growth of competitiveness.
So is this in any way related to the UN? Is the UN supportive of this?
No, it is absolutely not supported by the United Nations. It is an independent entity. It is a non-for-profit entity. It operates out of Washington, D.C., and it is supported by its members. It is supported by countries. It is supported by innovation labs and different associations with from regions and countries around the world.
So I know that you give advice to Congress, but do they listen? When you come up with ideas, does Congress embrace it?
Well, I will. I will answer this question. First of all, let me share a little bit about my role within the council. So, you know, in terms of what I do within the council. So my role as a senior advisor and a senior fellow, and the other work that you mentioned that I do around the world, from venture capital to innovation to technology, I really try to provide strategic advice and counsel to help guide the Competitiveness Council's policies at home and abroad, strengthening and growing the community of our members and participants, and many different ongoing programs. And there are all different initiatives, which I will discuss. And, in my area, we are looking to improve and affect U.S. competitiveness and put this, continuously to put this on the agenda, make sure that we network and we spend time with diversity of different leaders and influential networks around the United States and the world, from academia, research to business to government, and understand and provide market analysis of this whole competitiveness landscape for companies. Having said that, you asked a very interesting question, and very, very important to understand that we do have, we believe, and I believe that we have gained years of elected officials. So they're listening to us. We are a nonpartisan coalition of leaders, as I mentioned, from industry, academia, and labor. And our recommendations on behalf of the Council are the basis of many congressional hearings, Sarah. In fact, I will share something. We helped found the U.S. Senate Competitiveness Caucus, where many of our policy ideas have turned into legislation. So our work.
Isn't it hard for them not to listen to you, since you are made up of the top leaders from every area in our country, right? I mean, you really are the leadership of our country coming forward and saying, hey, this is important.
They are listening. And as I mentioned, the reason that we co-founded this U.S. Senate Competitiveness Caucus, that they're looking for our advice and our ideas and our insights to make sure its policies are effective and we have proper legislation. So we definitely have that. But I do want to mention that we also do work, with the White House, and involves advising the president's leading science advisors and working with the two executive branch agencies, NSF and DOE, the Energy Group Department. We run innovation programs for different agencies. What we bring to the table is connectivity to major labs around the country, but also our competitiveness landscape. We bring public and private partnerships. We bring private and public sectors together. So we bring all those pieces together when we run and engage many different agencies within the government, Sarah.
Well, you guys are busy. That's good. Well, where do you see the most urgent needs to keep the United States competitive? I know we touched on a little bit of this, but where else do you see, and maybe we can retouch on that as well?
Yeah, I'm going to touch upon, I'll give you a general overview, where I see how the United States is going to be competitive and what are some of the urgent critical factors. And I'll also touch upon issues that I deeply care, artificial intelligence, and why this is also going to be very critically important to the United States. Artificial intelligence is, right now we're leading in artificial intelligence. It's interesting. We want to lead somewhere, right? You're always on the news. Where are we leading? We are leading in AI. We're leading with AI investments. We're leading with AI startups, AI technology. The United States is leading. But I'll come back to the whole notion of artificial intelligence because it deserves its own attention. I do want to mention the key areas where the Council is involved, and to keep U.S. competitive. Right now, the areas are supercomputers. There's a whole area of hyper convergence and supercomputers. And Intel, as you know, is the only chip maker in the United States. We work very closely with groups that are really focusing on creating and innovating supercomputers in the United States.
And maybe moving towards new technologies like
that's right.
biological
technology.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I wanna say that regarding the supercomputers, we have work to do there as well. So Council is doing a lot of efforts to make sure that we are in front of the race. Right now, we are kind of in a competition with China, and it's one of our fellows has done a research study there and indicating that United States is falling a little bit behind China in the supercomputer race. In fact, you've probably seen the reports that China has surpassed the U.S. in total number of computers in top 100. which ranks world's high-performance computers by computing power.
Well, we can't underestimate China. I mean, their education, the education is good. They work hard in education, and they're very competitive, and their products on all sorts of levels are good. Their quality is moving up pretty high, and so you can't underestimate them. I've noticed in the business world that a lot of people underestimate China, and I always tell people you can't underestimate China. The Asian cultures are very competitive, and they work very hard.
Yeah, Sarah, and just to mention, absolutely, Chinese have achieved the number one ranking in the area of supercomputers right now, and that is a threat. It is a threat to our economic, energy security, and national security.
And why would you say that's a threat?
And Sarah, they achieved something. Well, I'll mention to the audience, the audience which is technical. They achieved something which is called 125 petaflops, which is a peak in the supercomputing processing power. And I think we need to do better. We need to do better in terms of modeling. We need to do better in terms of simulation. And we need to make sure that our government, United States government, puts this on the top of the agenda, because it is very important. It is very important to the energy. It is very important for our manufacturing, our military.
Can you give us a specific example so our audience can relate to it on how China being ahead in supercomputing can directly be a challenge for us?
Well, because, as more they get ahead on improving the speeds, creating the massive amount of power, they'll be able to improve on many military applications. And, this is not the point of the discussion, but I think this also indirectly impacts the nuclear weapons, the control of the nuclear weapons and the nuclear weapon technology. So the alarms should be set off, because right now they're getting to the point where there's some unfair advantages. We have lots of amazing research and really amazing processing power within companies like IBM and Intel. We got to gear it towards the national security and many different applications, as I mentioned, in manufacturing and clean energy. And that would tremendously help us. And I also will say that we have to, we got to get serious, really, Sarah. We got to get serious on the building faster supercomputers, because that will make it a national priority. We got to make sure we get funding from National Strategic Computing Initiative, and that's a very important. We got to keep innovating in our national labs. We got to get help from the whole umbrella of public-private partnerships to help the industry.
And we can't just focus on one part of the country, right? I mean, Silicon Valley isn't – I just did a lecture yesterday in my class about how, so much money comes into Silicon Valley, but there are so many other places around our country where there are smart, capable people where investments need to go.
Yeah, I do believe that many areas of the United States need those types of investments. And we spoke about this, I think, a while ago, Sarah, where I personally believe that we need to put a plan together to scale and reproduce Silicon Valley across different regions of America. We got to share the thinking of Silicon Valley, especially.
That's what makes them so great, is they have a culture and an environment where people can thrive. So we need to create that incubator environment elsewhere.
And especially they've been so good in creating knowledge entrepreneurs, not workers, but knowledge entrepreneurs that are willing to take those risks and are willing to create, bigger, new ideas. They're willing to create, autonomous vehicles. They're willing to create new technology in healthcare, in fintech. And we got to be able to do the same thing in many different parts of the United States, broadening this network and focusing on new human capital, creating many innovative business parks, not run in a traditional way, but in the way of 21st century, where we got to engage the leading entrepreneurs. We got to engage venture capital. We got to engage the creators. So we could create good paying jobs, and we could create new initiatives within this country. And Sarah, I want to mention also, not only I did touch upon the supercomputers, but other areas need to really have a focus right now for U.S. competitiveness. also not an area of my major focus, but I will share with you in general that we do have to be we have to be better in cybersecurity, and, and Council is working on some of those.
Oh, we're a mess. That's a mess. I can tell you for a fact.
Now. It
That's
is a mess.
But, looking at blockchain and looking at some ways to actually improve that as well, those can be some huge advantages for us. And really tapping into some of these brilliant minds across the country, because I was just listening to Julian Assange talk on the radio yesterday. He did a major interview, and he was saying that it is easy to tap into the Pentagon. And I think that is something that we need to fix.
Well, I have my personal opinion as I think, if we really learn a lot about Apple and how they make their products, their iPhones, their iPads, they're very secure, and they have unique security where you don't have easy access to APIs. You have really advanced encryption, and I think we gotta work with Apple, and Apple should work with the United States government to make sure that our infrastructure, our technology, our grids, and all of our ecosystem, our companies, our personal data, our corporate data, everything is secure based on those types of standards.
Absolutely.
I do think that they have really top standards in security.
Absolutely. Yeah, you look at somebody who's really good at what they do, and let's get the best at what they do in there to help us do it right.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then, Sarah, I want to mention briefly our manufacturing. There's a lot of discussion now in political circles, in politics, regarding our manufacturing. I don't know if you followed the Deloitte report that was released recently, 2016 Global Manufacturing Competitiveness Index. What it shows that right now we have fallen behind in manufacturing, but we definitely see huge potential right now.
It hasn't been our focus, right? We have been using other countries to do our manufacturing for us. In general, we have what I just read, that we had 50,000 manufacturing companies shut down over the last, decade or so. And it just hasn't been our focus. But if we turn around and we start using, and you're going to talk about this, AI and automated processes, and get smarter at how we do manufacturing, we could bring that back and have it be of quality, efficient, and less expensive.
Yeah, we absolutely, Sarah. We have to get our manufacturing back. And in fact, this Deloitte report indicates, when the report was done, it covered extensively from how the corporations are feeling, but also it took amount of some other research. And right now, today, the information today, China is leading. We are second.
Of course, everybody outsources to China, so of course they are.
Yeah, they're leading. But in 2020, which is not far away, it's only 4 years from now, projected. United States, if we do things right, if we focus on advanced manufacturing technology, if we focus on advanced materials, and if we really are laser focused on helping high growth industries in pharmaceuticals, plastics, machinery, computers, transportation, aerospace, and not necessarily, the older industries like textiles and furniture, and we really get this advanced manufacturing economy moving, Deloitte indicates, and I really agree with this, I think we will become a leader. We will become a leader in advanced manufacturing, and this will change the economics, and this will change the GNP, and this actually advances us to fourth industrial revolution.
And it also will create a lot more jobs.
Oh yeah, lots of jobs are going to be created, but also, the jobs that are going to be creating, people who are going to be working on those jobs, they're going to be manufacturing, and they're going to be developing components which are going to be lighter. They're going to be building things which are going to be, much more conducive to the environment, to impacting climate change issues. They are going to be, we're going to be able to create faster airplanes. We're going to be able to do a lot more driving, clean energy. And so a lot of interesting things are going to happen. And I believe manufacturing, is also a major key. We need to really focus and create momentum on U.S. manufacturing. We've got to retool itself, and we got to put a little bit more effort on R&D in manufacturing.
Okay, so massive change and massive retooling and doing things different, having different paradigms has obstacles. What do you see are the largest obstacles for this country to get over so that we can progress to this vision so that we can excel and everybody in our country can thrive?
Sarah, another very good question. I see U.S. has made over since the time it existed, made tremendous progress. And we really are, I do believe we are the shining city on the top of the hill, quoting a former president, Ronald Reagan. We have achieved so much, but there are a lot of obstacles now in the United States and making this progress. I see politics being number one, Sarah. I see that we have this whole division, this divide with our branches of the government. They can't seem to come together. Our parties can't seem to come together. We see countries around the world focusing and planning under much more centralized control. Of course, many of them are not as democratic as we are. They're not democracies, but we have too much bickering. We have too many people that are focusing on their own agendas. We got to unite as a country, and we got to have common agenda, common unity. And I think this political division is not helping us, and it's not helping us to mature to the next level. That's critically important. But I also, in the areas which you really focus on, Sarah, and you are really one of the top experts, is education. Now, I think education system is letting us down. It's letting us down, especially early education, kindergarten to 12th grades. I think we got to focus more on math and science. We got to get girls engaged very early on in math and science. We got to get talented people. We got to get talented students out of our schools to make sure they continue their careers in science and education. And we got to get out of this Common Core process. I believe that schools need to, and teachers have to have an incentive to be very creative and create their own curriculum and be able to teach students from their own knowledge. And most of the teachers, all the teachers that I know, are very, very knowledgeable, and they got to be able to take away their knowledge and position that properly. Laser focus this on students and making sure there's a proper dialogue. There's a personal dialogue with students and teachers. But I believe we have great universities. We have unbelievable universities, especially Ivy League schools throughout the country. We just have to do better from kindergarten to 12th grade in the areas that I mentioned. And I'm really focusing on math, engineering, and science and innovation.
Well, we got to get education out of the McDonald's drive-through concept. And I think it's moved towards that, where everybody gets shoved through a process. And we're taking away the freedom of the teachers who were so creative and so passionate about their kids, of making sure they learn. And we're forcing them into this, I call it the McDonald's drive-through. Everybody
we are forcing them. And what happens, the good students of our country that graduate high schools and don't go on for further education, the jobs don't match. So they end up in service-oriented jobs, which they're not really the ones which could really engage them over a period of time, support them properly, and let them grow. And so I think we have work to do there. We got work to do in universities as well, Sarah, as we've been discussing. I think we gotta form a much more intimate peer-to-peer relationships with corporations and small businesses, and we gotta have those partnerships, because I think when people come out of some of the major universities, they still need a lot of hands-on training. They don't seem to be completely aligned with whatever work is required.
Well, it takes a lot of experience to get to a point where you can just jump in and really drive a company. And so I think it's important to give kids those opportunities when they're young, so that they have the paradigms. They understand what it is they're learning and how that can be applied. And I think that's disconnected.
Yeah, Sarah. So I also think I mentioned the issues with our divide within the government. I mentioned the education, but I also feel we got to do better with regulatory and tax system. It needs reform. And that's up
Absolutely.
to policymakers. We need serious reform. It is just the tax system doesn't seem to work very well. There are lots of loopholes for major corporations. The middle class is always getting squeezed, and we're just over-regulating. We're over-regulating small businesses. They need room. They want to expand. They want to hire people. We gotta give them some breaks, and we gotta be able to also have some sort of controls over finance system or healthcare, science, but we have too much of the regulation in this country.
There's a lot of countries that are ahead of us in medicine and medical advances where people are leaving the country. I did a series on, where the pillars of excellence are around the world. There's a lot of people who are leaving our country to go get medical care elsewhere because our regulatory system doesn't allow advancements in certain types of medicine. And there's very advanced countries that are doing things that are working for people, rebuilding tissue and getting people out of wheelchairs and all sorts of things that we aren't doing here because our regulations are keeping that from occurring. And to me, that has to change.
It has to change. It has to change because, even treatments which many Americans need, they need, that's why medical tourism, you just mentioned, medical tourism has taken off in many, many countries. It created a whole economies because Americans simply can't afford, expensive treatments, whether they're dental treatments or families that are looking for, for in vitro, some sort of in vitro type of treatment. They have to go to India or Thailand to other places. We gotta be able to do this in this country much more effectively and not over-regulate.
Well, there's also adult stem cells where they're rebuilding tissue and getting people out of wheelchairs and working with MS and all sorts of diseases. And in this country, we can't even touch that. But, like Ronaldo, the superstar soccer player who's had problems with his torn muscle, he's rebuilding his muscle using that technology. We can't do that in this country, but in Europe they can. And in Japan, which makes the equipment, it's very advanced. There's many countries, most of the advanced countries are using this, but not us.
Exactly. And there's a case you touched upon Japan, how sophisticated their technology is. There was a whole series, and I actually discussed this yesterday in New York with my IBM colleagues, where IBM Watson has been deployed to diagnose cases of leukemia and in different patients, and they found leukemia in one lady, in a much more efficient, much more
excellent.
faster way than normal in Tokyo, in conjunction with University of Tokyo and IBM. So all sorts of advanced ways. We've got to be able to bring this back to our country and be able to leverage this so we live happier and longer lives.
Absolutely. So,
and Sarah, before we go, I do want to mention, regarding for our viewers regarding regulations and taxation systems. I actually spoke about this, and I want to throw this out and see what kind of response. I think we got to reduce our corporate taxation, and we got to stimulate R&D investments almost at the same time. And specifically, what I'm proposing is. This is what I'm proposing personally. I'm proposing that we reduce corporate taxes to 5% for all, and to repatriate profits for the next 24 months. After the 24 months period, we will increase the tax to 10% and cap that there. Then we should reduce capital gain taxes to 10% and cap it there. And finally, suspend corporate taxes to 0 for the next 24 months for any R&D investments in the United States. It is a formula which is working in some countries around the world. I've seen it.
So other countries are specifically doing this, and it's working. It is
working.
Really...
It is some of that, not exactly what I just mentioned,
sure.
But a part of it is been very effective in Singapore, has been very effective in Hong Kong. We got to be able to try this because right now, some of the corporate taxes are really hitting small, medium-sized businesses.
They're drowning because we got the highest tax rate in the world. And there's some industries where the people are riding without paying hardly any taxes because of the loopholes. And other industries where people are paying through the nose and they just can't. They're giving away almost all their profits at the end of the day and they can't reinvest in their, it doesn't make sense. So I agree with you.
They cannot. And we have to be serious. I will be very bold about this. You've probably been following me on this type of initiative. I do feel that, right now around the world, sovereign wealth funds are wealth creators. They're focusing on creating wealth. They're stable. They're good stabilizers for their economy in case something goes wrong. And we need to, as United States, create our own U.S. wealth fund, and be able to secure our future, the future for our kids. Right now funds are operating. The leading fund right now is Norwegian sovereign wealth fund. You have fund in Abu Dhabi, ADIA. You have fund Temasek in Singapore, China, GIC.
So all these countries have funds. We got to create a fund, and we use our own people's. And it's our own investment because we're using our own investment portfolios, right? So like pension funds and things like that go into this, and then we invest in our own country.
We got to invest in our country. Let's look at the numbers. BlackRock, for example, it manages, over $5 trillion in assets. We have a lot of private equity companies here in the United States. Some of them I work closely with. And all of them have billions and trillions under management. But we don't have the similar structure in the government. We got to be able to establish this type of a fund, which would be managed, by the way, I suggested it would be managed not only by the government, by very professional financial gurus and concentrate on making profits. How do those profits are going to be used? Those profits should be used to reduce our national debt, to improve our national infrastructure investments, and also invest in the strategic investments in our economy, and especially when, sometimes when you have to do a little bit of divesting, sometimes you have to invest along the bumps when our economy is overheating or underperforming. We got to be able to handle this. And I think, we should be able to do this with the private sector. Private sector.
Can we do it without there being corruption involved? Because I think people are tired of the corruption. So can we create something that we desperately need, like all the other countries in the world does, and do it cleanly? And something we can be proud of?
I do believe if other countries like Singapore and Norway, they're doing this without corruption and really doing it for national interest of their countries, and we're a nation of freedom, democracy. We should be able to do this properly, but this has to be a major, major initiative. And, we have enormous debt obligations. I understand this, but I think our U.S. infrastructure really needs a lot of help, a lot of support. And we got to be able to bring American families. We got to bring people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett into the conversation, and bring everybody together so we could brainstorm and develop the best. We have examples from around the world. I just mentioned, we know what works, what doesn't work. We could fine tune this. We could supervise. And this, I certainly believe that this will be in the best national interest of our country. It will create more jobs, and we could have a completely different financial future for our prosperity, if we focus on creation.
Well, we have to do
US
something, right? Because otherwise, if we keep going the way that we're going, it's going to collapse. I mean, that's statistically proven by MIT and others. So we need to do something. So you do something like this where it starts to reduce our debt, and that mathematical formula starts going the opposite way. And
in fact, Sarah, I'll be bold here. When other countries are buying our treasury bills, a lot of them would be eager. By the way, we would appropriate a little bit for other countries, not a controlling package, but we should appropriate a little bit for other countries to invest in our sovereign wealth fund, instead of our treasury bills. I think there's a lot of ways we could work this process.
Oh, sure. Yes.
And I just think that we got to be able to do a lot better in terms of our economy. We got to be able to, and I think also if we bring in, Sarah, professional financiers, and we got to make sure that they are solid that they have a goal and interest of America, they should do a much better job with portfolio investment decisions because they had done it before. They have a track record. And even more than that, look at the major investments that our technology leaders are, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and other people. We want to get their knowledge and we want to bring them in as advisors to the U.S. Wealth Fund.
Absolutely. Let's bring the best and the brightest that we have in this country and let's get them to help. They're patriotic. They love the country. Get them in to help get this country back on track.
I agree. Sarah, I as an American, a proud American, I feel the labor participation right now, which is, which is near 40-year low, and has been under 63% for 21 consecutive months, with productivity not being the numbers that we would expect, with this continuous outsourcing to China, to India, to Mexico, to Poland, to all those places, not helpful. And I think the issues we discussed, the strategies, the solutions, we could address this. We could overcome a lot of those issues and really be stronger. Because I think what we're focusing on is we're focusing on more private agendas. We're focusing on creation of overinflamed unicorns. And yes. You and I had discussions on this instead of a national agenda.
Well, and we have to be nonpartisan. We have to be and get a lot of these political issues out of the talking points, get them off the table and talk about some of these serious issues that we need to address that the other stuff just holds us back. I mean, we can't be talking about discrimination and social inequality. That has to be solved. And we know that that's wrong. And we got to say, okay, that's wrong, but we can't let that argument hold us back on other things that we need to do. And that's super important, but we can't be sidetracked. We got to get this accomplished and we have to do it in a nonpartisan way. And all those other things, we just have to recognize that we got to mature and grow as a society and stop doing those other things that are so destructive.
Sarah, I agree with you. You and I know today, being very proud Americans, the United States today is the number one economic superpower in the world. Number one economic. So we have the highest standard of living today, while other countries are closing the gap. But the key to our success, and I believe the U.S. Competitiveness Council is a major driver in this, is entrepreneur. Let's focus on American entrepreneur, the person that wants to create opportunities, businesses, and jobs. No other country in the world has this environment, as you know, for innovation like we do in the United States. No other country. We share the risks. We're not afraid to fail once, twice, and we keep going. When I started my career, as a chief technology officer, as you know, and worked as a CTO for public and private companies. And then I said, I really want to get into the business of investments. So I re-educated myself. I retooled myself in investment management, in venture capital, in strategy. And every American should be able to do this, but we need encouragement. We need motivation.
And lifelong learning. Yeah. The ability to be able to get into a different direction and learn new things and be confident doing it. And be supported doing it. Everybody who wants to should be able to learn. Lifelong learning is the most important. And the fact that people want to switch careers, good. That's fine. Let's support them and learn.
Absolutely. And I think what we have here is, again, we keep coming back, those innovation clusters, which are, the Competitiveness Council is highly involved. I'm personally involved. We got to be able to connect the dots. We got to be able to connect the dots with the national labs, the industry, the universities. But now I'm really fostering the creation to the connection to the entrepreneurs, the connection to venture capital, our investors, the people that really want to foster all those new ideas, all those new companies, and that will be our key to competitive advantage. Every other country in the world could try to replicate this. We're years ahead if we just get our act together, and we could take risk. We could take a shared risk together, a more calculated risk. But I believe we will succeed And we will keep it will keep America as the number one economic superpower if we do this properly.
So we have all the pieces. We just need to be a team now and do it together, right?
We got to be a team. And I mentioned in the beginning of our podcast that I really believe right now, and you've probably seen a lot of the stuff that I've written. I really believe that artificial intelligence is going to be the key. Coming back to something specific, right now we are the lead player in terms of investments, as I mentioned, innovation in the AI, startups, and everything else. And this is happening because we have incredible amount of data available, incredible amount. It's something like, in the next several years, we will have 44 trillion gigabytes of information that we got to be able to decipher and make sense out of it. We have very fast, as we discussed in the beginning, very fast supercomputers, and they're going to get 30 times faster than they are in the next 3 to 4, 5 years. Wow. So all the pieces, there's a perfect storm, Sarah. All the pieces are coming together. We have them. And now I believe that now the AI is not the AI that I was used to years ago when I was educated in AI. Now AI is becoming very much applied. It's applying to finance. It's applied to entertainment world. It's applied to healthcare, every industry. And as Mark Zuckerberg said, AI will create major success. Your companies will be very, very successful. And that's why, Sarah, what we're seeing Facebooks of the world, Google, the IBM, Microsoft investing so heavily. Number one on their agenda is to acquire AI resources, knowledge, competence, so they could impact all those new business models, which they could invest in.
And it's basically using the data and figuring out, being smart with the data and being able to do analysis quickly, because people can't do that quickly. And using the AI to do the analysis, whether it's driving cars, whether it's fintech and investing. What other examples do you have? There's tons.
Well, absolutely. So you just mentioned cars, the driverless cars. In the next 5 years, also, I don't think it will be perfect because you need perfect environment and you need probably to do it. But what will happen in the future, you'll have an app, and instead of a Uber driver picking you up, you'll have a driverless car. Like almost what's happening now in experimental level at Pittsburgh.
But it'll be safer, right? I mean, you might have, I just was talking about this the other day, that somebody got killed in a driverless car, okay? Yeah. However, it's still a lot safer. You might have 3,000 deaths in a driverless car, but you would have 100,000 in regular cars. There's a huge statistical difference. I threw those numbers out. Those aren't accurate, but there is a huge statistical difference on the number. It's so much safer.
You're absolutely right. The human drivers actually killed 32,000 people a year, and driving fatalities. And there's research now indicating that AI driving will probably eliminate, most of those accidents. So I think that model is being shaken up. The traditional auto manufacturers have to come up with something. The BMW, Mercedes, I know that they're working, Chrysler, GM.
It's happening in all sorts of industries. Like fintech is the same thing. They're worried about the traditional banking going away because so much of it's going to just happen with AI and automated software applications.
Sarah, you're absolutely right. In traditional call centers, which are also part of the banking industry, and many others, are probably going to be disintermediated because it's all going to be automated by AI systems. And I actually will go out. I made a statement. The chairman of JP Morgan made that statement also, said fintech will eat ours for lunch if we don't do something, because most banks will be disintermediated. So things like walking to the bank.
They will be.
If you walk into the banks, you may not have the reps there. They won't exist because everything will become very commoditized, and it will be peer-to-peer products. You'll be able to communicate through all sorts of agents exactly what you're looking for.
And millennials prefer that. So they're the ones that are going to go. They prefer to do things online, socially, networking. Yeah, their world is different.
The world is very different. And by the way, a lot of the, for example, the private banking, the wealth banking, it's affected by robocalls as they are today. So robocalls, they are the calls that are specialized calls that are getting information from you about your investments. However, I do think if you're an ultra high net worth individual and you're, in the environment, you probably still need, support and guidance. That's not going to go away.
You're always going to need the brains to think about creative different things. You can't automate understanding global economics and big picture stuff. That's not going to happen. It's just like automating art. You're not going to automate art. You're not going to automate creativity. It's the stuff that doesn't take the creativity and the real high-end thinking that you can automate.
But Sarah, AI is going to create lots of new jobs in creativity. It's going to create lots of new jobs
in the
industry, lots of new jobs in fintech. Because what we're doing, instead of having day traders right now, we're going to have, those intelligent systems, and those systems will have to be populated properly. And so you're going to you need a lot of experts that will actually work with the quant data, with those intelligent boxes, and you have to be able to monitor, manage, a lot of complexity there, monetary policies from Asia, from Europe. All those things are going to be reside in those smart boxes, and, decision-making process is going to be double-checked. Quality assurance, for example, I really believe that the role of the quality assurance in this country, right now the quality assurance is an area of manufacturing, IT, but that quality assurance role is going to be everywhere as the AI economy is going to take place, because you're going to need to make sure that when those systems are in place, they're functioning properly, because we would not be able to afford even 1% deviation.
Well, what are we going to do with the people because we're going to need a different educational system to be able to educate people to handle this stuff. What are we going to do with the people that traditionally were doing low-skilled labor?
I think a lot of improvements are going to be made in farming. We're going to be able to provide a lot more intelligence and information to farmers regarding the crops. And this is just an example. So I think that they will benefit tremendously. But I think that whatever the area is, some people may be into agriculture, some people in farming, some people in technology. They just will have to be updated on the latest products and the latest applications. And I also believe that, iPhones are going to become much, much smarter through, now you and I are using Siri. Siri, give us the weather, tell me what my agenda is for today. Those Siri applications are going to be very, very useful for the general public, because they'll be able to help them. They'll be able to also educate them. A lot of it is going to be used for entertainment and education, for what I call deep learning systems. So I don't think you may not necessarily need to go to a specific college. If you are in farming industry or agribusiness or manufacturing, you may have apps which will have this interactive education using AI, which will teach you a lot of information so you could be productive and you could be successful and drive your businesses in any way that you want to. And that's the future.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been very educational. How can people learn more about you and your work and all the fascinating things that you're doing with this council?
Folks should connect to the council's website, compete.org. In the Council of Competitiveness, JFCC also has its own website, and you could find that from the Council of Competitiveness. But also, I also am in venture capital. I'm investing with groups both in West Coast and East Coast, and private equity here in New York. And so people could get in touch with me directly. And I have my own personal website, which, if you like, can I announce it?
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
www.markminovich.com is my personal website.
I'll put it up on the radio page so people have that.
People could link to that or send me an email. My email address is there. So, from the competitiveness to technology to venture capital, we covered a lot of areas. Artificial intelligence, be happy to take the discussion further. And I really enjoyed this conversation. We hit so many points. It was such a lively discussion, and leading to a very instead of focusing on risks and challenges, I think we hit that, but we were focusing on the future, and we were focusing on solutions and opportunities.
Well, and that's what we need to do. We need to focus on solution and opportunities, and we need to do that together. And hopefully we can get some leaders in this country that can create some vision so we can bring all types of people together to move towards where we need to go.
let's do this together, Sarah. I think the podcasts have been really inspiring, and I very much look forward to following up.
Absolutely.
And being involved in this process together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.
Great interview with Mark Minovich. And if you want to see more information on how to contact him, go to my website at sarahwestall.com. I have all his contact information, his email, his websites, and you can get them from there. I also have all my past shows up there as well with blogs and so forth on detailed information about the topic that we are discussing. And I want to remind you that my show plays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on WBLQ, which airs in New York, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And it also streams live on TransformationTalkRadio.com and on other streaming digital channels and on 90-plus different podcast channels. So you can get it all over the place. So I hope everyone, for now, has a wonderful day.
You've been listening to Business Game Changers with host Sarah Westall. Tune in each Monday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, as Sarah brings you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Tune in Mondays at 12 noon Pacific Time and learn more about Sarah at sarahwestall.com today.